When we think of Romeo and Juliet, we think of the ultimate romance, candles, balconies, and dying for love. But what if I told you that Shakespeare wasn't writing a romance? He was writing a brutal tragedy about hate, violence, and the terrifying impulsiveness of youth. Welcome back to Summary in Minutes. Today, we are entering the blood-stained streets of Verona to uncover the real story behind the star-crossed lovers. This isn't just about a boy meeting a girl. It's about how an inherited war destroys the future. The play opens with a prologue that gives away the ending. We are in Verona, Italy, a city torn apart by an ancient grudge between two powerful noble families, the Montagues and the Capulets. We don't know why they hate each other, and it doesn't matter. The hate is bitter, violent, and disrupts the peace of the city. We meet Romeo and Montague. At the start, he's a moody teenager, lovesick over a girl named Rossellini who doesn't want him. To cheer him up, his friends, including the witty and volatile Mercutio, drag him to a masked party hosted by their archenemies, the Capulets. At the party, Romeo sees Juliet Capulet across the room. Rossellini is instantly forgotten. This is love, or perhaps intense infatuation at first sight. They meet, they share a sonnet, and they kiss, only to discover moments later that they are sworn enemies. Romeo's reaction is immediate. My life is my foe's debt. Later that night, Romeo sneaks back into the Capulet gardens. This leads to the famous balcony scene. Juliet, thinking she is alone, asks the night sky, "Wherefore art thou, Romeo?" Meaning, why must you be a Montague? Romeo reveals himself. In a rush of adrenaline and passion, they decide to get married. Not in a month, not in a week, but the very next day. They are driven by an urgency that defines the entire play. They seek out Friar Lawrence, a well-meaning priest who agrees to marry them in secret, hoping their union might finally end the feud between their families. If the first half of the play is a romantic comedy, the second half is a violent tragedy. The turning point happens immediately after the wedding. Romeo, now secretly married to a Capulet, is walking the streets when he encounters Juliet's fiery cousin, Tybalt. Tybalt is looking for a fight. Romeo, trying to keep the peace, refuses to engage, but his friend Mercutio, disgusted by what he sees as Romeo's cowardice, draws his sword against Tybalt. Romeo tries to break up the fight, but in the confusion, Tybalt stabs Mercutio under Romeo's arm. As he dies, Mercutio curses both families, screaming the famous line, "The plague o' both your houses." Blind with rage and guilt over his friend's death, Romeo chases down Tybalt and kills him. The Prince of Verona arrives. Instead of executing Romeo, he banishes him from the city forever. In one afternoon, Romeo and Juliet have gone from newlyweds to a banished murderer and a grieving cousin. Things get worse for Juliet. Her father, ignorant of her secret marriage, decides to force her to marry a nobleman named Paris within 3 days. Desperate, Juliet turns to Friar Lawrence again. The friar hatches a deeply flawed and risky plan. He gives Juliet a potion that will make her appear dead for 42 hours. Her family will bury her in the Capulet tomb. Meanwhile, the friar will send a letter to Romeo in exile, explaining the plan. Romeo will come back, wait for her to wake up, and they will escape together. Juliet drinks the potion. Her family finds her dead and places her in the crypt. But tragedy relies on bad timing. The friar's letter to Romeo never arrives due to a plague quarantine. Instead, Romeo hears from his servant that Juliet is actually dead, devastated. Romeo buys a lethal poison and rushes back to Verona to die beside his wife. At the tomb, Romeo encounters Paris, Juliet's ranged fiancé. They fight, and Romeo kills him. Romeo then enters the tomb, sees Juliet looking lifeline, kisses her one last time, drinks the poison and dies instantly. Moments later, Juliet's potion wears off. She wakes up to find her husband dead beside her, hearing guards approaching. She grabs Romeo's dagger and stabs herself in the heart. The play ends with the two feuding. Families discovering the bodies of their children. Overcome with grief, they finally agree to end their feud. But the cost has been total devastation. So, what is Shakespeare actually telling us? First, the danger of haste and impulsivity. The real villain in this play isn't Tybalt or the parents. It's time. Everything happens too fast. They meet on Sunday, marry on Monday, and are dead by Thursday. Their love is described with violent imagery like fire and gunpowder, intense, bright, but quickly burned out. Their passion is destructive because it refuses to slow down. Second, fate versus free will. The prologue calls them star-crossed lovers, suggesting their doom was written in the stars. Bad luck plays a huge role like the undelivered letter, but they also make terrible choices. Romeo chooses to kill Tybalt. They choose secret marriage over honesty. Shakespeare suggests a mix. They are victims of fate, but they also rush toward their own destruction. And third, love versus hate. The play constantly contrasts the private world of love with the public world of violence. Romeo and Juliet try to create a separate world just for themselves, but the public feud keeps crashing in, ultimately. The hatred of the older generation consumes the love of the younger generation. Romeo and Juliet is a tragedy because it didn't have to happen. It's a story about how the grudges of the past can suffocate the future. It's not a blueprint for romance. It's a warning about the consequences of unchecked passion and senseless division. If you enjoy this deep dive into Roma, make sure to subscribe to Summary in Minutes. We have analyses of Hamlet, Othello, and more on the channel right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next book.